Welcome to Device Casting Couch, Season 1, Episode 34. I am Ryan, and of course joining me is John. And yeah, it's been a while since we recorded. I think the last one was August 2023, I think.
Yeah, a lot of things been happening, man.
Yeah. So we have a lot of articles. We're going to try to put it into one episode, but we have several months
we'll keep it condensed. It'll be all right.
We'll try anyways. So
if you guys like listening to us.
Huh?
I said, if not, you guys like listening to us.
Yeah. Or, just put us on the background while you fall asleep. I don't know.
I'd be concerned.
What? Yeah. I don't think we have that soothing of voices, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
So the first one I want to talk about is a nuclear battery. What I mean by that is like a transportable nuclear battery, one that can fit in your hand. This was made by BetaVolt Technologies. They claim to have developed a battery that can last for 50 years on a single charge because of, obviously, it's nuclear. They say they did this by miniaturizing atomic energy. And now this isn't the normal atomic energy you may think of, such as like a nuclear power plant. That's because they're using isotope nickel instead of much more radioactive materials like uranium or something similar. They further claim that the nickel 63 that they use generates 100 microwatts of electricity by way of this particular type of nickel's radioactive decay, which from what I found is way less radioactive than other materials used in nuclear production and is seemingly safe. Because that was kind of my first thought, was like, all right, you're putting a nuclear reactor in my pocket. Like, am I going to freaking grow a nipple on my thigh or something because this is in my pocket?
Whoa. Is this like, because I've heard of other batteries like this. Is this the one where it uses like alpha and beta particles to make energy? Or
so, again, I'm not a nuclear physicist or anything like anything in that field. However, from what I understand, they're using this to bombard the isotopes or whatever that break off the electrons. They bombard a plate made of some sort of diamond alloy or diamond material, and it eventually turns that strip into copper. That's the nuclear waste, quote unquote, that is produced by this reaction. And somehow, again, not entirely, I don't entirely understand the details of it, but it takes that reaction and is able to produce electricity or power off of that reaction of it changing this other alloy into copper. Or that's the result, I guess, but it bombards this material, and that bombardment, the energy that's released, is then collected and pushed to whatever device is hooked up to. Please, if anyone is more knowledgeable on this, please comment and correct me if I'm wrong, because again, I looked into this. I looked at like 5, 6, 7 different videos and articles, and I don't quite have my mind around this thing and like the actual inner workings of how this reactor works.
Is it actually released? Can I buy it?
No, you cannot. So it's so this type of technology is already being used. It's not the same type of thing, but they use it in like pacemakers. So stuff that takes a very, very small electrical charge to use. So like obviously your phone is going to take a lot more electricity, a lot more wattage than a pacemaker. So
yeah, but what if I want to run an LED for 50 years?
You probably could. But this is just their prototype. This is it's not a theoretical prototype because they did make it, but you know what I'm saying? It's not in a neat package to be sold. It basically, they did it in a giant machine, and they say that the technology works and can produce this amount of electricity, but they don't actually have it in a consumer product. They are planning on doing that in the future, but not currently. Again, I couldn't find a source that told me definitively how much radiation is output by this thing, or like what it was in comparison to like sunlight or just current phones right now. I couldn't find anything that told me this is exactly how much is produced, probably because this is still a little bit theoretical on if this can be made into like a handheld version. But they say the technology is there and they will be able to miniaturize it.
So it's a honeypot.
I mean, so full disclosure, BetaVolt is a Chinese company. So there may be a little bit of propaganda going on here, a little bit of PR spin. I mean, and they're a technology company. And as we've seen, technology companies tend to oversell their products a little bit. However, again, I wasn't able to find any definitive answer on how much radiation is output. So who knows? It may, kill you in 5 years. I don't know. But they're saying it's safe. They're saying the technology is already, the type of technology is already being used in medical devices. They're just trying to upgrade it basically to put out enough wattage to power like a phone. So BetaVolt just says that there is no harmful radiation that's output. But again, you kind of take that with a grain of salt. But as we've seen, technology companies have no problem lying to appease investors or calm public fears or whatever, or just it might just be straight up propaganda. Who knows? So if anyone, again, has further knowledge off the top of your head, please share. But there are other safety caveats, I guess, to this type of technology that are worth noting that we already know, such as it's not flammable because there is nothing flammable in it, and it won't explode if it's punctured. And it's super heat resistant as well. So this would be kind of revolutionary in terms of like putting this in your like cell phone device. There would be no way to cause it to malfunction or explode or anything like that. Like we see, especially in the IT community, if your battery starts to puff up like a freaking pillow or something like that, and it can burst and get acid everywhere, or it eventually leaks.
Like a Samsung Note.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, bursting into flames. Yeah, holding a grenade in your pocket
by the FAA.
Yeah, exactly. So like there would be none of that. It's impossible for it to have any of that. Well, I say impossible. I'm sure someone could probably turn it into a bomb, but as of now, that type of technology is not as dangerous as normal like lithium-ion batteries. Also, as I said earlier, once all of the nickel 63 is depleted, it just turns into regular copper. So the output of this is just another harmless metal, which can be easily recycled. Pretty cool. So theoretically, disposing of an old or damaged device that uses this battery would be way safer than throwing away like a lithium-ion battery into the garbage or a landfill or whatever. You could just recycle the copper. With that current output of 100 microwatts, it's nothing massive, obviously, or super usable, but it is a breakthrough, and they plan on making a 1-watt battery by 2025 as their current goal. And this stuff lasts for 100 years. Like I
thought you said 50 before.
So it's a single charge lasts for 50, but the battery itself lasts for 100 years.
So you can recharge it? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, so you basically recharge it once before you die. Basically. Like this thing will you'll never run out of juice, and there is no lessening of power either or capacity. So you can keep on recharging it, right? So like, obviously, the 50 years thing, that might be like from 100 to 0, right? So if it gets down to like 20%, you could recharge it. I don't know how long it would take to recharge. I imagine a very long time. But you could recharge it, and there would be no lessening of capacity. Like normal lithium-ion batteries, especially in phones and stuff like that, over time, they eventually degrade, and you get less and less of a charge and less power output. But that's not how this works, because it runs off of the decaying of material. It decays at a steady rate, so there is no loss of power or capacity until it's literally has no more material to decompose, which is pretty cool. And you'd be dead before it runs out anyway, so no worries there. What would be interesting is, in theory, if you bought a new device like a phone and you could just take it out of your old device, it's still a usable nickel battery, and pop it into your new phone. That would be kind of cool. I don't know if they'll go about that. This would call for the need of every device manufacturer to build their devices to accept, the same type and size of battery.
Yeah, that would never happen.
Yeah, but I mean, the theory is there, right? We've seen it in practice. They did it with AA's, right? Like everyone was using AA's, AAA's, D batteries, like all manufacturers made their toys and devices to accept them, right? So it could happen again with these nickel batteries. So I don't know. Hopefully that is the case. Manufacturers kind of like modulate their devices to be able to accept a universal battery. Again, as we've seen with with greed and stuff like that, most manufacturers don't want to do that because they would probably lose out on money. But that would be a pretty cool push to see happen. Again, this discussion of it being used worldwide to supply every battery-powered device in your home is probably like years, if not decades, away. At the end of it all, it may just be used in very specific applications like medical devices. It might just be an upgrade to our normal medical devices that we have, or it'll just get buried and we'll never hear for it again. There's been many, breakthrough announcements that we've heard in technology that ultimately just don't pan out or are brought up and killed by companies that feel threatened by it. They'll buy the patent and they just bury it. That's definitely happened a lot of times. So who knows where this is going to go, but it is very interesting and hopefully it'll keep going and grow into something that we can use to our benefit on a day-to-day basis. Speaking
of companies that love planned obsolescence, we're going to talk about Apple a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
If you've been keeping up with the news, Apple has been, I don't want to say fined, but they've been, I think, required by the EU to change some of their policies. So some of these include like sideloading apps, alternative app stores, different web browsers, because iOS actually doesn't allow different web browsers. Like if you do see one, it actually still runs on Safari's like engine. It actually isn't its own browser, if that makes sense. It's just a different UI.
Yeah.
So the article I'm talking about is actually Apple was required by the EU to allow web apps to be on your phone, but they're actually disabling that in the iOS 17.4 because they're saying it's too hard to keep offering the feature. So I thought that was interesting, but they do have a decent argument, and it's not that web apps are hard. They're arguing because now they have to allow alternative browsers like Chrome or Firefox, that implementing those engines with the web app is causing complex security and privacy concerns. I think it's just a cop-out because they really don't want to do this. I'm curious to see how the EU will react, if they'll get fined again.
Yeah, because I mean, the EU has made them do a lot of stuff. Recently,
they got Type-C charging.
Yeah, most recently with the charger type, which I think was a great push. I think that was a really good call. However, I feel like Apple is going to fight any new pushes as hard as they can. And this seems like, I guess, the next logical step. Like, okay, you made us change our chargers. Now we can't sell everyone a $25 string of wire that only works with iPhone. So now we're going to fight everything that you bring up to us because you're just going to continue to lose money and lose control over their whole ecosystem. Like that's Apple's whole thing, right? Is that everything is Apple. Everything works together. Everything is proprietary. So like you start taking that away, then what do they really have to compete with other devices like Android?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. This is all because of the Digital Markets Act, which targets gatekeepers.
Sure.
And they say gatekeepers are basically anything like Apple. Let me think how to word this real quick.
Sure.
I think we all understand what gatekeepers are, right? But they want to allow third parties to interoperate within their own services and prevent them from favoring their own over third parties. So I would love to see an actual browser alternative on iPhones. Not that I use one, but it would just help with this whole browser monopoly thing going on.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, especially with browsers being available that are much more privacy centric than a lot of the proprietary ones. I mean, especially like Android with Chrome, right? Anyone who doesn't know, Chrome is not a privacy centric browser. It's anything but, and no matter what they try to spin on their ads and stuff like that. So on Android, you can choose not to use Chrome. It gives you that freedom, so then you can put something else in place, like Brave or something like that. But on Apple, like you said, it just changes the UI. It doesn't really change how your connection operates.
Yeah, because they still use the WebKit browser engine that Safari uses. Like on my Android, I actually use, it's called Mole. It's like a Firefox version that has all the privacy concerns and everything disabled, telemetry and all of that.
Sure.
And it works well. I like having options because with browsers specifically, there is like a monopoly right now. Like Google owns 90% of the browsers. I think like another, don't quote me on this, but I think another 7% is Safari. And that's just because of iPhones and Macs and all that.
Sure.
And then you have like Firefox, which has like 3%.
Yeah.
Where back in the day, it used to be more 50-50, if you will. You had Internet Explorer, you had a little bit of Chrome, and then you had Firefox.
Yeah, it was very competitive.
Speaking of Firefox, this kind of ties into another story I have, but Firefox is laying off 60 people, and they also want to build AI into Firefox.
60 people?
Yeah, so 60 people. Mozilla is a small company, so Mozilla is the company that owns Firefox.
Sure.
And they're laying off 60 people, which is about 5% of their workforce. This isn't anything new. We've seen a lot of tech companies laying off people.
Yeah.
Due to inflation and all kinds of other stuff. I don't think Mozilla specifically mentioned that, but I know other companies have.
Yeah.
I did think it was interesting that they did mention they want to put AI into Firefox, and we don't really know what that looks like. But we can kind of guess because Mozilla did buy a company called FakeSpot, which is an AI used to identify fake product reviews.
Oh,
so could be interesting. I would just be cautious. I know AI is the buzzword, and Mozilla has a tendency to jump on these kind of buzzword activities. Like they had a stint with virtual reality where they made it was called Firefox Reality. It's a VR focused browser.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of other things, and they hop on it for a second, and then it dies, and then they hop on something else. And it's like just keep good at one thing, or if you want to introduce a new product, maybe make it a little bit more polished and not just, oh, this is the latest trend, let's hop on it while we can.
Do you think that that's a consequence of being so small, where like they're always trying to kind of jump on the newest thing, the newest trend, whereas like a bigger company, right, they may have money to throw at something, but they also have investors and like stockholders that they have to keep their interests in mind, otherwise they'd be like legally dick slapped. So like,
so Mozilla has done stuff before that hasn't been a failure. Like they were actually one of the people that developed the Rust programming language,
sure,
which has seen a lot of adoption, especially now with the Linux kernel and an Android. It's taken off, but a lot of their stuff like this Firefox Reality, their Mozilla hubs, has not done well. And this part of it, if we want to take a little deeper dive, Mozilla is not a healthy company, if you will. How they get the revenue, 80% of that comes from Google. And this is because there's a deal that when you install Firefox, Google's the default browser. Now, Google does this because they don't want to be a browser monopoly. It's kind of like how back in the day, Microsoft was actually giving Apple money, saying, hey, look, there's a competitor. They're over there. They're still alive, you know.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are speculating that's why Google's doing that as well. One, because they want their search engine dominance, but two, they want to be like, hey, Firefox is still around, you know. You don't have to use Chrome if you don't want to.
Yeah, which is very shady. Because, I mean, on the surface, yes, it looks like there are competitors, but, I mean, anyone who does even a 15 minutes of digging can find that that's really not the case. Like, Google and their parent company, Alphabet, they own so many companies. It's mind-blowing how many companies they own. And to say, like, this, I mean, if 5% of your workforce is 60 people, and you're calling them a competitor, that to me that kind of seems a little wild.
Yeah, I do hope Mozilla does well, because like they have Firefox, they have Thunderbird. Those are all great projects. I actually do donate. I did donate to Thunderbird. You know, it is important to keep these open source products alive and around.
Sure.
Because not that Chromium's bad. There are supposedly de-Googled Chromium browsers, but I don't want to see a monopoly. You know, the web is built on openness and having variety of standards, and if we just let Google take that over, I think we'll see problems.
No, I agree, which is why I definitely am behind the EU pushing companies such as Apple to kind of diversify their stuff. And like you said, their argument for that, like the bigger companies like Apple and Google, they obviously do want a corner on the market so they can make more money. But also it does make their job harder because they have to then incorporate a bunch of compatibility and stuff for different products. So I do see both sides, but I do like having a variety and choosing what I want to do on the internet. Yeah, a lot of companies are kind of opposed to that because it does make their job a lot harder, or you can just find something better and then not use their product at all.
Well, another reason you should keep Firefox alive is Chrome. I think we've talked about this before, but they're trying to move to their Manifest v3, which would severely limit ad blockers. And as you know, everyone hates ads, right?
Yep.
So Firefox isn't doing that. So if you want to use ad blocker, maybe take a look at Firefox.
Yeah, uBlock Origin is still going strong with blocking ads. So is Brave. Brave browser is still alive and well and blocking ads. So we've had this discussion before about ads. Like when YouTube first started implementing ads and stuff like that, like it was a little bit of an inconvenience, but it was pretty normal. Like it seemed like a logical step. YouTube was like, hey, we provide a free service. Before you watch a video, here's a 5-second ad, or here's a 30-second ad that you can skip after 5 seconds. It really wasn't that big of a deal. Like I don't even remember being inconvenienced at all or thinking twice about it. Now though, not only is there so many ads, not only on YouTube, but elsewhere as well. There's so many ads and they're all shit. I don't know. Maybe I'm like having some sort of nostalgia block or something like that. But like, I don't remember ads being this boring back in the day. Like I remember watching some of the ads before a video because they were interesting. They were funny. They were well written. They were just, it was entertaining to watch. Now they're like min-maxing how much money can we push into this because no one's going to watch it anyways. How much money or how little money can we put towards this ad, or just have like AI write it and just pump out as many ads as possible. And they're not fun to watch. They're not gripping. They're not entertaining. They're just shit. I don't understand. I don't know. Maybe am I crazy?
No, I agree with you, and that's one of the reasons I've actually changed a little bit of my viewing habits. Like for instance, I used to use a Roku, right? Mm-hmm. And Roku has a YouTube app, but I would get so many ads. So like you said, back in the day, you would get like a 5-second ad, you'd skip it. If it was a exceptionally long video, you might get an ad or two in the middle.
Yeah.
And that was about it. Now I've seen where you get 2 ads in the beginning. One's like a 5-second one where you can skip, and then another's like a 30-second one that's unskippable, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then I swear it's like every 5 minutes in a video, I get another ad, and it pops up. I don't know if it's just me and my analytics, but it's like the same ad over and over and over again.
Yes.
And I'm like, this actually makes me want to avoid this company altogether.
Yes. I completely agree.
I'm not opposed to ads. I get it's a free service, but I think they need to target it a little bit better. I kind of, if I was to watch an ad, maybe give me some variety, because seeing the same ad over and over again is just annoying.
Yes.
And then also don't make it as every couple minutes. Like I'm trying to watch a video, I get invested, and oh, here's the ad again that I hate, like it's terrible.
I've also noticed that, and I'm assuming this is done on purpose by YouTube, but it'll usually be like I'll get an ad right before like a big reveal in a video or something like that. Or they'll like get done with the introduction and they'll like just start to get into the material, and then you'll get an ad, right? So you want to keep watching the video, right? Like before something big happens, or before a transition to a new topic or something like that. I definitely noticed that, which is also super annoying. But yeah, I was telling you, I pulled up it was a sports highlight video, and it was I believe just over 10-minute video, and there was 8 ads in the video, in a 10-minute video. And I did the math, and it's close to a quarter of the time of the video itself was just ads. And again, like you said, it's a free service. I get it. I know people have done videos on it, kind of not defending it, but saying it makes logical sense. Like you're on a platform, you're using it for free. But at the end of the day, I don't really care. I don't care that it's a free service.
So let's talk about this. I actually have an article about YouTube TV.
Sure.
And so let's break it down a little bit. So YouTube TV has come out to be the 4th biggest cable TV provider with 8 million subs, right?
Wild.
And their YouTube TV is service they offer where you pay $73 a month and you can get big name like TV channels like CNN and ESPN, stuff like that.
$73.
Yes. So, you know, there's YouTube Premium where you just pay $12 and you get like the music and no ads and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And that's $12 a month. And so there's 100 million people who have premium. So right there, that's what?
Jeez.
1.2 billion, I believe, in dollars in revenue.
Well, it's $50 per person, right?
So this for the premium is $12. So I kind of jumped a little bit over. So I think that's 1.2 billion if I'm doing my math right. And
sure, we're not mathematicians.
For the YouTube TV, that's $73 a month, and they say they have 8 million subscribers. And I've heard a lot of good things. I've heard people have it and they got rid of cable, and I can see it has its benefits, right?
Sure.
And so this got me thinking. I was like, how much money does YouTube actually pull in? And so from 2021, Alphabet reported in total from all their stuff, not just YouTube, but everything, that they have a profit of $146 billion, almost 147.
Wow.
But YouTube accounted for 11.2% of that. So YouTube makes $28.8 billion. And that was from 2021. So it might have grown, especially now that they're attacking ad blockers now.
Yeah. No, I'm not surprised.
So I get they're trying to make money, but just tone the ads down a little bit. Like you're clearly profitable. You're not like these other companies where you're just losing money.
Well, so I will say, I think this is what YouTube, or I guess Google or Alphabet or whatever company name you want to slap on it, I think that this is what they wanted from the beginning. Because they were running at a deficit for a decade? Like they weren't making a whole lot of money for a long period of time just so they could squeeze out any competition. And now that they have either bought up or destroyed any competition as far as any like video platform, media sharing platform, now they can actually implement whatever they want because you don't really have a lot of alternatives. Now, that's not to say there isn't alternatives, which
Hey,
spoiler,
check us out on Odyssey.
Yeah, spoiler, we're going to make a video in the future going over alternatives. However, people don't know about them. They either don't know about them or they're just so obscure or something like that or there's some sort of like learning curve to use it, something like that, like everything is already on YouTube. Like if I look up a tutorial for something, normally I'm going to YouTube. I'm usually not going to any other media site. So they've kind of built a monopoly in this category of like media sharing as far as videos are concerned. And I believe that they now that they've gotten to that point, they're now able to pretty much do whatever they want, which is why I think they're being so aggressive with the ads and ad blocking. Because they could have done this years ago. Like they knew people were using ad blockers and they know people don't like ads. So they were probably, I don't think it's too far of a leap to say that they were kind of holding themselves back for a lot of years to get people comfortable and get people using their product. And then once people are invested and there is no other alternatives, at least in their users' minds, now they can pretty much do whatever they want and people will just kind of complain about it, but they'll accept it at the end of the day.
And to add to that point, that is kind of what they're targeting. So the YouTube CEO, Neil Mohan, I think is how you say it. I don't know.
Sure.
With this whole YouTube TV and everything, he said, we want watching YouTube to be like it was for traditional TV shows. We want you to sit down and watch it on the biggest screen in your home with your friends and family. So
that's not how people operate anymore, though.
I do watch YouTube on my TV.
I do as well, but it's not a family event. I
think it depends because there is a lot of interesting content. I don't pay for cable. And to be honest, Mr. Beast is entertaining. It It is crazy watching them like blow something up, or you know, who can get this private jet if they keep their hand on it the longest or something like that.
We have very different tastes.
Well, you know what? I think we've talked about this before, but Mr. Beast, he's clickbaity, but he delivers.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same kind of theory that's behind like Mark Rober, where like the dude only makes a video a month, but he pulls in his like AdSense revenue is like in the millions or billions or whatever. Like he makes so much money because he oversells it in the thumbnail, but he actually delivers on what he's doing. And yeah, I will say Mr. Beast does follow through with what he says in the thumbnail. So like, yeah, it is a good, I guess, marketing scheme, I guess. But
I've sat down with my family and
wild marketing scheme
watch this crazy video, you know.
Yeah, I mean it's a super progressive marketing scheme to actually deliver on what you're advertising. That's wild. But yeah, I mean I will say that on the surface they are entertaining. I don't know. I can only watch so many of those type of videos because like they're like, hey guys, today we're gonna, and I'm like, whoa, all right. Like I don't need you yelling at me. All right, I know you're excited, buddy, but calm down.
Well, obviously I won't just sit there and watch it for hours, but like I'll switch it up. Like I'll watch a video that Mr. Beast did, and then I'll watch like you said, Mark Rober. He had that it was like the squirrel like gymnastic course.
Oh, the Squirrel
like
Olympics.
That.
Yeah, that's a fantastic video. Like I enjoyed that video.
Yeah, it's calming and it's interesting.
Yeah.
You just kind of put it on and
Mark Rober is a great
form.
Yeah, he's a great YouTuber. Like I'm not dissing any of these people or anything like that. Like Mr. Beast, whatever, he can do whatever he wants. He has some shady stuff with his food companies, but whatever. But yeah, like Mark Rober, like yeah, he's a freaking god of YouTube. Like he puts out a video a month and makes, as much as the top 10 YouTubers. Like the guy knows what he's doing. He does it very well, and he makes very interesting videos. But I also don't want to watch 17 ads while I watch his video. So, I don't know. In my opinion, I don't know. The reason I'm so adamant about this is there is no vacuum on the internet. If something dies, if a company dies, as we've seen time and time again just remember any company that you used to enjoy or any site that you used to enjoy that doesn't exist anymore, right? You can immediately think of a platform that took its place. If YouTube died tomorrow, there would absolutely be a site that would rise up and take its place. There is no vacuum. If there's a demand for something on the internet, it will be filled by one company or another. So like, that's why I don't really care about using an ad blocker. I use an ad blocker on YouTube. I don't enjoy their ads. And I don't agree with the argument that, well, it's a free service, so they're going to serve you ads. There are better ways of doing it. And if YouTube crashes and burns tomorrow, something else will take its place.
Well, just to counter your argument a little bit, I think what you were saying in the beginning, but you didn't just say there, was you would be okay with ads if it went back to how it used to be, where it's like maybe a 5 to 10 second ad in the beginning, and then you weren't really interrupted unless it was like an extremely long video. Like if it's an hour long video, okay, put an ad or two in the middle. I have no problem with that.
Yep.
But like you said, you watched a 10-minute video where you had 8 ads.
Yes. And it was super annoying. It made the video unwatchable. There was no like consistency in the video because I'm trying to watch sports highlights, right? So it's supposed to be stitched together in a particular way so that you see all the highlights, right? And when like every 2 highlights, it's broken up by another ad. Like that's super annoying. It disrupts your whole like watching experience. And yes, if it went back to the original where there was like a 5-second ad in the beginning or a 30-second ad, and if it's something I was interested in, I would watch longer. But you can skip it after 5 seconds if it doesn't apply to you. If it went back to something like that, or I was watching, like you said, an hour-long video and there was some mid-rolled ads in the beginning or whatever, then I would be completely fine with that. I might not even use a ad blocker if that was the case, because why? Like it's not that much of an interruption. But as it stands now, I would say I will absolutely continue using an ad blocker in any way, shape, or form, which uBlock Origin and Brave browser both do a fantastic job. They've had no issues. And yeah, if YouTube died tomorrow, I would be okay with that because something else would take its place. It's not, to me, it's not that big of a deal.
Well, I wouldn't want it to die. There is a lot of content on YouTube. I wouldn't want to lose content.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah. I mean, the content that's on there, I will agree. I would not want, because I mean, there's a ton of history on YouTube. Like whether or not you watch it or find it or whatever, it's still there, and that is very important. However, if YouTube as a company, I guess, or as a platform, not excluding the content, obviously, like yeah, if they died tomorrow and all their headquarters went up in flames, yes, that would be a big loss to the online community, because, like you said, there is so much content on YouTube. But as a company itself, like someone else is gonna take that spot.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we've seen it before. There are competitors, like we said. There's Odyssey. Back in the day, it was there was MetaCafe.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm saying I think there's Daily Motion, but that kind of tailors more to the like indie film side of things.
Yeah, or like Live Leaks,
or is that Vimeo? One of those Vimeo, tailors to the indie film market.
Yeah,
but I don't know. It's interesting. But I do want to pivot to my next story, which is Google is no longer backing up the internet. So if you remember, you would search something, there would be a button that said cached, right? Yeah. You could click on that and it would pull up a cached like snapshot of the website. Well, Google is no longer offering that. They're slowly killing it off. They say that originally the caching feature was meant to help people accessing pages that either had trouble loading or, days when the internet wasn't as good. But now they say that's largely not a problem, so they're slowly dropping that feature. It still is there. You can like manually cache a site.
Sure.
If you type in a specific query into your URL, you can get the cache, but they're slowly getting away from that.
Would that affect who runs the Wayback Machine? They're an independent
That's the Internet
site.
Archive.
Okay, so they're independent
project.
from Google.
Yes.
Okay. Well, at least that's still around.
But then it puts a bigger job on them because, what if the Internet Archives goes up in a storm, in a ball of flames or something?
Yeah,
which
I'd
hate to see.
Yeah,
now there isn't
that would be
another
a huge
option.
loss.
There are other options, but like Google and the Internet Archive were like the biggest ones.
Sure. Yeah.
And this is just a trend in lately with Google and their era of cost savings. They've just been cutting different projects. I know in the last one we talked about, they got rid of their Google domains. They actually sold that off to Squarespace, I believe.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they're starting to cut some corners. I'm sure someone who is more in tune with this would have a better answer, but I wonder what they're like. Are they gearing up for something? Like, is that why they're cutting fat everywhere, or are they like losing the battle on a certain front? That's why they're like cutting everything. I'm trying to figure out what their goal is, because they've been cutting a lot of fat over the past several years, and now they're being more aggressive to get more money off of YouTube, with the ads and everything, and pushing premium and all that stuff, attacking ad blockers. I don't know. It seems like they're being super aggressive on a lot of fronts. I don't know. I don't see a clear goal of like what they're going for.
I'm not 100% sure. I bet if we actually read Alphabet's like quarterly filings, we could see what their vision is and what the outlook is.
Sure.
But it just sounds like they're trying to focus on their core business models that are working, because Google has a tendency to dump money into spaces and kind of mess with the technology and then never deliver anything. I know you have a video about Project Loon and how that never even took off. So I think they're just trying to focus on their core businesses. I don't think they've necessarily stopped messing with other stuff, but
they definitely slowed down, because they were like, they would innovate in multiple spaces at the same time, where they were like, all right, we're going to work on this project and we're going to work on this project and blah, blah, blah. And now I don't really hear of them doing anything like that. Like you said, it seems like they're just focusing on what is making us money right now. And they're just pushing those super hard. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of like research and development, I guess, with Google anymore.
Well, they're still researching. I know they're messing with AI and quantum computing. They're still doing stuff. I don't think it's as flashy as before. Because what was it, Project Loon or the Google Glass, all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
if it did have a product, did not take off or didn't even deliver a product. I think they're just focusing on their core, which isn't a bad business move.
No, it's not. It just seems it's uncharacteristic of the company, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And that's that's what I don't understand, like what they're, or I guess not don't understand, but just I don't see a clear goal. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's, if we read, I don't know if they publish their, like newsletter to their stockholders or something like that, but I'm sure there would be some sort of like vision or mission plan in there that would kind of explain why they're doing this.
Well, I'm saying they have other businesses besides just the search engine and YouTube. They still have their AdSense, and they're like the biggest online ad provider.
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
They have cloud computing. They have their G Suite tools, which is like Office Suite. So you have like Google Docs and all that.
Yep.
They're still focusing on areas. I think they're just not as flashy as before. I think they're just pivoting slightly. Like they still make phones. They still make, Android. They have their hands in a lot of things. I think they're just getting rid of the stuff that just doesn't make sense. Are
they still, I don't know if I'm remembering correctly, but they shut down their Chromebook thing, right?
No, I thought Chromebooks are still going strong. I know they're pivoting Chrome OS to be more Linux based, I believe.
Okay.
Because before, like, Chrome OS was literally like Chrome on a laptop.
Yes.
So you could web browse, and you could kind of do a few other
very
things.
Limited. Yes. Yeah, that's probably a good move. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of then, that they're revamping the OS part. And I do want to say the Loon project, it did work.
Oh, it did?
They did. Well, so they used it for, if I'm remembering correctly, was it Haiti hurricane? It was one of the hurricanes in the Caribbean, I believe. And they actually did pull up their trucks with Loon stuff and put the balloons up in the sky, and they did create a network, and it was a working network for like EMS and first responders and stuff like that. But yeah, it was just obviously on a very small scale. It was not the balloons dotting the sky as far as the eye can see vision that they originally had, because that would be kind of asinine. But yeah, it did work. It did work.
Yeah. So here it says Chrome OS supports Linux applications being executed, where it kind of spins up a Debian virtual machine or something.
Sure.
I don't completely know, but I know they are pivoting because it has become better. I still don't like it, but it is better than what it used to be.
Yeah, I haven't messed with Chrome OS in quite a while, because it was kind of just an afterthought, at least in my mind, because it was just kind of a super limited OS.
I get what they're trying to do, but I also don't, like, because I think there still is a market for cheap low-end devices, right? Like, so back in the day, I had a Acer Aspire like netbook. It was like an Intel Atom processor, and back in the day, multi-core processors weren't as big of a thing, but still had like a single core. It was like 32 bits. Maybe had 4 gigs of RAM, and I think it's because I upgraded it. But it was super cheap, and being like one of my first laptops, it was fine. But we don't really see that nowadays, especially because how bloated Windows has gotten, and it's impossible to run Windows. I think you need like 16 gigs of RAM now. You could probably get by with less, but it'd be a miserable experience.
Yeah, I would not recommend under 16 for anything Windows. It is so fat. It's such an overloaded OS right now. And I know there's different versions of it that you can get online. A lot of them I don't really trust fully. There also is, I know you mentioned before, like Mint and stuff like that. There are like Linux based that look like Windows, but they're not actually Windows, that are much smaller and run a lot leaner. But yeah, Windows,
for your basic person, like Linux can, maybe it's because I'm a Linux advocate. I am using
fanboy?
Linux right now. Yeah, you could call me a fanboy, I guess.
A stan,
but
if you will.
For the average person, I think Linux offers the same, if not better, experience than what you can get with Windows, especially on a low-end machine. It's not as heavy.
Sure.
It doesn't have all the bloatware that Microsoft has. And if you're just using a web browser and checking emails, it is way lighter on your resources. It's a better experience, in my opinion. And you can do a lot of stuff, like especially with Valve and their push with the Steam Deck. You can play like almost 80% of games on Linux now.
Yep.
It's not as simple as Windows. Sometimes you have to do some tweaks, but for Firefox, most of them come with it pre-installed. You can load up, like you said, Linux Mint or any of the other versions out there, and it opens up no problem.
Yeah, it's just not as catered, I guess, or like bubble wrapped as like iOS or Windows. You might have to do a little bit of legwork if you have some obscure software you want to run or something like that.
Well, not to go off on a tangent, but at least with Linux, you actually own your machine. With Windows, I never felt like I owned it, especially I would...
Sure.
I bring this up time and time again, but I had Windows 10, right? I would de-bloat it. I'd remove all the built-in add-ons, disable Cortana, all this stuff, right?
Yep.
I'd run an update, and everything's back.
Yes.
I'd have Cortana enabled. They've reinstalled like Candy Crush Saga. I'm not even joking. This
Games
happened.
tangents.
I got so infuriated that I was like, you know what? I'm switching Linux, and I just pulled the Band-Aid off, and it works. Like I can use Discord. I have Firefox, Thunderbird. I use Bitwarden as my password manager.
Yep.
Like I run my 3D printing software. So like, what's it called? Cura. Cura is the slicer that works no problem. I game on it. Obviously, not all games work because of anti-cheat, but it's not that the game couldn't run. It's that the company hasn't enabled anti-cheat to work for Linux.
Yeah, yeah.
So, for instance, Apex Legends uses, I believe, easy anti-cheat and runs no problem. But Fortnite, I believe, uses the same anti-cheat, but they just haven't enabled it to work for Linux. And it's just a couple configuration changes, I believe.
Well, they're too busy, having virtual concerts and reskinning the same skin 50,000 times.
So not to go off on a tangent, but if you guys are interested, I might make a video showing, hey, Linux is not that bad. The market share has been growing. I think recently they got to, it's like 3 or 5%, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think a large portion of that is just because the Steam Deck has been selling so well that it has a nice UI and it's easy for people to get into Linux gaming.
Yeah.
But
I would say don't go into it thinking it's going to be as simple as Windows. But I would say if you have a laptop or something like that, or even a virtual machine, if you have a desktop, I would at least try some of the versions of Linux just to get used to it and see if you like it. And if you do, then, hey, you don't have to spend money on a freaking Windows key to activate your Windows, because otherwise you can't change your desktop background. Like stupid stuff like that. It does avoid a lot of that. So I would say just try to use it. See if you like it. Try it for, a week or so. See if it works with your programs that you use on a daily basis. And if it does, then, hey, maybe that there's a free OS that you can, kind of customize and curtail exactly to your needs and wants. And then you can use that as your daily driver. But I would at least give it a try. Because some people have tried Linux and they just don't like it. Or it doesn't work with this niche software or something like that. But I would at least just give it a try and see if it does work. I feel like a lot of people would realize that it is something that is, pretty useful and usable with a lot of their stuff.
So I think maybe we can make a video about this in the future. I think if you're just using it for basic tasks, it is as simple as Windows, if not simpler.
Yeah.
It has an app store, so you don't have to type in a command line if you don't want to. Most of the time, you can find your apps you want. Like you can install Blender, you can install all these programs. Now, like you said, there are some niche programs that don't work, or if you want to get them to work, you have to do some trickery.
Sure.
But I guarantee for your grandma who just like checks CNN in her emails, you could load up Linux Mint and they'd have no problem. And the other thing to notice is because Linux is so customizable, there's so many different desktop environments which mainly control the user face of it. Like they all use the same Linux kernel, right? Maybe slightly tweaked, but it's all the same under the hood. It's how it presents to the user, because some of them have more of a Mac look, like it has a dock at the bottom with your applications on it. Some of them have more of a start menu based interface similar to Windows. Some of them are their own thing. Like it's so customizable, and that's why there's so many distributions. Is that because someone had an idea, I want it to be like this, and they made it happen.
Yeah. There is definitely a ton of versions of Linux. like I said, if you want it to look like a certain thing, like John was saying, there is a version that makes that happen. If you're scared of like, well, I like having the, you know, the Windows look. I like having the settings. I know exactly where all the settings are. I like having my, you know, taskbar on the bottom and my search bar, blah, blah. I have it set up just how I want it. There is a version of Linux that does that exact same thing. Just search it, like Windows lookalikes Linux, and it'll come up with, you know, different versions that look like it or already have pre-built in like a UI interface that is very similar to what you're using now.
I believe it's called Windows FX. It's literally a Linux version that looks like Windows 11. Like, I don't know how they got away with it, but they stole all the icons and everything.
I mean, if Pal World can get away with it with Nintendo, I'm pretty sure Windows FX can get away with it with Microsoft.
But yeah, maybe we'll make a video kind of exploring why I moved and how it's really not as scary as people think it is. There is a learning curve, so you have to be kind of open-minded. But let's not dwell on Linux any longer.
Sure.
I do have an article.
Sure.
If you're okay with this. It's kind of interesting. So the Department of Justice quietly removed Russian malware from routers in U.S. homes and businesses. This headline caught my attention because I haven't really heard of this before, where the Department of Justice tasked an agency to actually remove malware. Apparently, this is the second time it's happened. So what happened is there's 1,000 Ubiquiti routers that were in homes and small businesses, and they got infected with this malware called MooBot. I believe that's how you say it, MooBot. And they said this has ties to the Russian hacking group Fancy Bear. And so there's a secret court order as part of Operation Dying Ember, according to the FBI's director, where if you had not changed your default admin password, which is probably how you got the malware in the first place, the DOJ also used the MooBot malware to copy and delete the botnet files and data. And they then changed the firewall rules to block the remote management access to fix it. So I kind of have mixed feelings about this. I get that they're trying to help out people, but I don't like that they just went in and did it. Like, they did say they are notifying the people to perform a factory reset and install the latest firmware and change their default password. But the fact that they just went in there and did, like, maybe for critical infrastructure, I can understand that. But for, like, small businesses and home, I don't want the government getting into my router. We already know they can do that.
Yeah.
But, like, them blatantly saying it, and just because of some court order, like,
Yeah,
I think it's a fine line here. I don't know how I feel about it.
I would at least wanted them to, and again, I'm sure there's more behind the scenes stuff, but I would at least want them to at least notify the customer, maybe.
So they are. So they said
no, like before they went in.
Oh, okay.
Being like, hey, you're infected with this. We want to go in and remove it. We're going to do that now. Like, I would rather have, like, if I was a business owner, I mean, let's say you're working in IT, right? And you're going over your logs and you see someone, an outside organization, log into your equipment. I mean, that'd be a huge scare. Like, if they didn't notify you that they were doing it, because you don't know who they are or what they're doing. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't pop up and say, like, you know, the U.S. government is now logging into your router. Like, if you have a Seams machine or whatever, I'm assuming freaking alarm bells are going off everywhere that someone's logging in.
This was specific to this Ubiquiti router. I thought it was really interesting that they used the same malware to log in to delete the malware. Like,
yeah, that
it was kind of interesting.
It's weird that they were trying to keep it silent as well. I don't understand, like, not notifying people beforehand. You would think that they would, I don't know, maybe they were trying to track them down and so they didn't want to, like, scare them off or something. I don't know. There might be more behind the scenes than I'm privy to, but that does seem super shady. Like, I don't like either of those things that happened. Being infected with malware or the government using the same malware to remove the malware. I don't feel comfortable with either of those things. Allegedly. No,
the article doesn't go into a whole lot of detail, it was kind of real short, and I imagine because it was a secret court order that
Sure.
maybe not all the details are out. Yeah, so I thought it was interesting. I figured I'd mention it.
Imagine you're like network defense, right? And they're logging in using the same malware, and you see them, and then it just turns into war games where you're fighting against the U.S. government, and you're thinking that that they're trying to hack your system using malware, and it's just you and this freaking NSA agent going back and forth trying to best each other on your own network.
Face off between these Russian hackers and the FBI.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, well, and you as the network personnel in your company,
So
you're trying to.
It's like Western standoff where I'm pointing a gun at you and you're pointing a gun at someone
exactly,
else.
Yeah.
Pointing it at me.
But you don't know who any of these people are because you weren't notified about anything. So you're just, it's like a hack three-way, if you will.
Maybe we can work on the phrasing of that.
No, I like that. Okay, hacking orgy, is that better?
No, that's worse.
Oh, okay. Well, there was penetration. For sure. Of networks. Calm down. Well,
so I think we can all say, change your default passwords. All right. This
yes,
is probably
please.
how they got in, and that's how they fixed it. But it says change your default passwords. All right.
Speaking of stuff leaking out and people getting into networks, ExpressVPN apparently has been leaking its users' DNS requests for years. If you don't know what DNS does, it stands for a domain name service. Basically, it's the phone book of the internet. If you don't know what a phone book is, I'm just kidding. We don't really use them anymore. So, but most people understand the concept of a phone book. There's DNS servers everywhere, run by your internet provider at your work. There's independent DNS servers like Cloudflare. But when you look for a site or search for anything, the results are shown in letters in your language, right? But network equipment doesn't read your language. They don't speak any language except numbers, which they go off of IP addresses. So every site you go to has an IP address. So your DNS basically translates whatever you're trying to look up into numbers so that your network knows where you're trying to go. So that's DNS. So obviously, if you have a VPN, something that is supposed to keep all of your information inside an encrypted tunnel so nothing outside can see. And when that feature starts leaking your request for where you're trying to go, especially if it's to your internet provider who absolutely keeps logs of all traffic, which was what was happening here, you can see why that's kind of a huge deal. I will say this was only affecting their split tunneling feature, which allowed users to decide which apps and programs went through the VPN and which were just sent over the regular internet. So if you have ExpressVPN or you're going to get it, just make sure you have version higher than 12.72.0. They did patch it, and I believe they removed their split tunneling feature for now until they figure out how to fix it. But they didn't catch it for several years. So if you were doing shady stuff on split tunneling on ExpressVPN, you might want to, put some thermite in your computer. I thought that was pretty wild.
It is kind of wild because I still, unfortunately, use ExpressVPN. I have been looking into Molvad, but for now, I'm still with them.
Yeah,
good thing I don't use the split tunneling feature though. So hopefully, all my shady, Google searches are safe and sound.
Yeah, because John is Fancy Bear. That if you're wondering, it wasn't the U.S. government that was getting into your ubiquity. He just wants you to think that it was actually him.
But how am I supposed to bake my AI? I need all this processing power.
Exactly. Yeah. Create a little botnet, and then you can have your AI.
Speaking of botnets, I'll do a real quick story because it turned out to be fake. But there was a story circulating around the internet, and I think it was, a week or two ago, that 3 million electronic toothbrushes were hacked and used in a DDoS attack.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
This has found out to be not true. So basically what happened, a Swiss news site published this story saying that the cybersecurity firm Fortinet said that they were infected with this Java malware and used to conduct DDoS attacks. Well, Fortinet actually doesn't have any recollection of this attack ever happening. So
Mandela effect.
they haven't published any information about this attack, so it looks like it was kind of made up or some kind of hypothetical or something. I think they might have mentioned something in like an article saying that, hey, this could be possible, but I don't think this attack ever really happened. I'm saying we have heard of IoT devices being hacked using default passwords and being part of a botnet, but this whole electronic toothbrush thing is that's never happened. So it was fun to read. It was crazy headline to look at. We were just having this conversation at my work that everything's smart. You have smart toasters, smart fridges. Like, I'm like, just give me something dumb. Like, why does my toothbrush need to have Wi-Fi? You know.
So you can listen to podcasts while you brush your teeth.
Just give me. Oh, hey, do you remember that toothbrush, the Tooth Tunes or whatever it was called?
Yes. Yeah.
It was an interesting concept. I don't know if they're still around.
It was definitely interesting. I'll give them that.
I never used it. I'm curious to see how well it was. You know, like, was it okay?
So I totally agree with you. We've had this discussion before with smart devices. I don't get the draw of having everything in your house be smart. I don't really understand, because it doesn't really save you time, right? Like when I'm thinking about it, like I go about my daily life and I have a regular fridge. I don't have a smart washer and dryer, or my microwave doesn't connect to my network and alert me when the 3 minutes is up where I'm heating up my Hot Pocket. Like I don't get the draw of it. Like it's new and it's flashy and like, hey, it connects to the internet and you can, your microwave can say hi to you or whatever. I don't really get the draw of it. If anyone has an actual use case where it was super helpful, please let us know, because I would be interested to see. But like, the only aspect that I think would be kind of helpful is like a smart stove, for example. Something that can be a hazard that you're able to, like if you're out for the day or whatever and you forgot to turn off your stove, or you can have the peace of mind of checking to see if your like garage door was closed when you leave. Like, oh, I can't remember if I closed the garage door. Like that I could see being a helpful use case of like being able to look up and control your device. But also, as we've seen, it's a huge vulnerability, because if you're, let's say your garage door opener is connected to the internet and you're able to access it, that means someone else is able to get into your account and open up your garage door. So like, I don't know. I don't really see the benefit or the draw of having like a fully connected smart home. Like all your light bulbs are on their Wi-Fi and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't see the upside, I guess.
Yeah, me neither. I don't get it.
I don't know. And again, maybe we're just paranoid, but I don't really see the benefit of having it. Like it doesn't take me that much time to go check to see if my dryer is done. Like I don't need it to send me a text and say, hey, like we're done drying your clothes. I don't know. It just doesn't, I don't see the benefit of having it all connected. But again, maybe we're wrong. Maybe there's a huge market for this that we're missing. I don't know. Let us know if anything, have a
in
use
my
case.
Experience, anytime you add smart to something, it diminishes the quality of the original product.
Sure.
At least that's my experience. Like they're like, oh, here's this smart thing. It's like, well, this thing is actually worse and is going to break sooner.
Yeah. There's more that can go wrong for sure.
Yeah.
And some of them are like, if your smart stuff stops working, like I know there's some washers and dryers and stuff like that my family owns. And if the circuit board for the smart portion goes out, it stops working. So like you have to have that on at all times. You can't, like if the smart feature breaks, you can't just use it as a dumb washer and dryer. And maybe that's a brand specific thing or whatever, make and model. But I don't know, that just seems like another thing that could break. And I mean, as we've seen, devices break all the time. So Like, I don't want to have to pay for, to replace a circuit board in my washer or dryer, or spend the time to fix it myself, when I could just buy a dumb one. And like, dryers come with like 6 parts on the inside. If you didn't know, like, dryers are very simple machines, but then you start adding like
ones are super easy to fix.
Yeah, and super cheap as well. You can go and get parts pretty much anywhere. Mm-hmm. So like, once you start adding smart features, like you said, that's just another thing that can break. And if it controls everything inside the device and then that breaks, then I'm just left with a hunk of nothing that I have to get fixed. When in reality, I could spend $20 and have a working machine again. I don't know. It's wild. Maybe that's freaking boomer logic. I don't know.
I mean, so I heard you have a story about a BitLocker, I believe.
Yeah. A YouTuber by the name of Stack Smashing broke BitLocker encryption in 43 seconds with a $10 Raspberry Pi, which is wild. If you're unfamiliar with what BitLocker is, it's the encryption software by Microsoft that you can enable on pretty much any device that's running Windows OS. It locks down your drives when you're not using them, and every time you boot up, it essentially puts a key into the lock and opens up your drive so you can use your data. It's a really good idea, and it's super helpful for keeping your stuff safe. I'm really glad that Windows includes it, obviously, except in this case. Stack Smasher did this by attacking the Trusted Platform Module, or TPM, on the motherboard of the computer. The TPM stores critical data, including the keys to unlock your drives, if you're using BitLocker. He found that the data being sent between the TPM at startup, like the CPU asking for the keys so it can boot the system, was not encrypted. So he just plugged in the Raspberry Pi to the motherboard, literally bare metal to bare metal, and was able to intercept that traffic. And then he had the master keys and it was able to unlock it, whenever he wanted. Now, there is a caveat to this. This only works on systems that have an external TPM physically on the motherboard, and you have to have physical access to the device. So many newer systems have the TPM inside the CPU itself, so it doesn't work with this. Though the super easy method, it doesn't work. But still, it is something that, for something that's so widely used as Windows and its BitLocker feature, I thought it was worth mentioning.
Yeah, it was extremely interesting because I think, if I remember correctly, because I kind of looked at the same article as well, he made a custom PCB where he could attach the Raspberry Pi Pico, and he put some pogo pins on it. And because on the Lenovo he was using, there was actually, on the PCB, there was pads put that weren't used for anything. Like, I think they were used for debugging in the assembly line, I believe.
Sure.
But he found that connected to the TPM, so he could just touch the motherboard with this device, and then just sniff all the TPM traffic and get the key.
Yeah, so he did do some legwork as far as actually building the Raspberry Pi for what he was trying to do. So it's not like as easy as you might think. It wasn't just like open up the case, touch a wire, and now you're the god of that computer. But he did it in 43. Once it was built, he did it in 43 seconds with something that cost less than $10. So kind of wild.
It just shows that if you don't have physical security on your device, that it's pretty much done. Like, if someone gets physical access, they're in the system.
Yeah, there's not much that can keep them out. Now, if BitLocker is running as it should be, with like a newer CPU where the TPM is discrete and not on the motherboard itself, it would be safer if like your drive was confiscated or someone stole it or something like that, like stole your laptop or something like that. That would be a little bit different because BitLocker is actually working as it should. But in this case, yeah, it was pretty easy to bypass it.
So does this only work on the TPM only version of BitLocker protection? Because I know you can set like a PIN or a password or even like a USB key, like that also has to be present. Does that affect those ones as well? Or?
I believe it does not affect those because that's basically like two-factor authentication. So that this was just between the CPU asking for the master keys from the TPM. Gotcha. And he was able to sniff them from there. So if you had an extra layer of security, I would assume that would stop that, because even if you had the master key and you inputted it, it would still ask you for your PIN or password. So yeah, I would assume that it would kind of negate that type of attack if you had a second layer of protection. Okay. Now, I don't know if, you inputting that PIN in, if that was also sent in clear text. I'm not sure. Or if that was stored by the TPM at all, and if that sends it with any of the packets that it sends to the CPU with the master keys. I'm not sure if it sends like a hash of that or whatnot, but as far as I can tell, that would negate that attack.
Yeah, it does look like the Ars Technica article does say that the PIN would prevent that from happening.
Sure.
But it also does say that with a sufficient amount of time, you could also brute force the PIN.
That is true. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know how much time you're talking about if your PIN is super long, but the freaking heat death of the universe or something.
All right, so I'm gonna speed run a couple articles real quick. Plex is offering rentals now. Very weird. I'm not a fan of it. This is more of Plex trying to cater and be like, hey, we're not for pirates. Look, we're offering. And I could see it. They're a business. They're trying to keep on the up and up, but
sure,
I'm not a fan. Next, Prime. The Prime Video is cutting their Dolby Vision and Atmos support for the ad tier, so you have to pay more money if you want the high quality audio.
Big surprise.
Hulu is following the tracks of Netflix, so Hulu and Disney Plus are going to start they're cracking down on the password sharing, just like Netflix, so this should start on March 14th, from what the article is saying.
Big surprise.
And, the last article, Pixel 8 Pro had a thermal sensor on the back, and now they say you can use it to measure body temps. So they have a picture showing that if you put it on someone's forehead and you move it across, it's pretty accurate. They say it's within plus or minus 0.3 degrees Celsius when compared to an actual FDA cleared artery thermometer. So
yeah, anal thermometer.
Kind of interesting.
Well, they're a couple years too late with that thermometer idea, but it would have been useful, a couple years ago.
Yeah. But the next one, right? The next pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
the next plandemic, you mean? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, chill.
Just kidding. Kind of.
It's just a prank.
Yeah, there's a misinput. You calm down. I do have one last article here.
Okay.
To leave on a sad note. The inventor of the network time protocol has passed away. David Mills. If you're not familiar with the network time protocol, or NTP, it basically synchronizes the time on all devices on a network, and now pretty much across the internet, to be on the same time. So before that was implemented, it was either manual or whatever. It was a little bit archaic and a little confusing because you weren't sure if it was actually synced to an accurate time. And he saw the problem with that and basically invented a protocol that was able to tell every device, okay, you will sync to this true time. Just imagine a bank or something like that, where timestamps and date stamps are extremely important. Basically, it was able to bring all of those devices together so that all the banks run on the same common time. I mean, if you're in your friend group and you ask what time it is, if everyone is wearing a watch, you're probably going to get a few minutes, if not more, difference between everyone because they're setting all their times. Whereas now you can just pull out your cell phone and you pretty much have all the same time. And NTP keeps all devices within tens of milliseconds of each other. So it's very, very accurate. He was also, he worked at ComSat and was also heavily involved with ARPANET, which was the original internet before what we know today. And he identified the need for synchronizing time across computers because obviously that's super important. And now that is, that protocol is being used on billions of devices. He also invented the first router, the thing in your house that, shares your Wi-Fi signal. Invented the first of that, and also inspired the creation of ping, the measurement of, how healthy or or good your connection is to a server or some other service. He inspired the creation of that, which anyone who plays online games is probably very familiar with that term. But yeah, he just passed away a couple weeks ago, but I just wanted to highlight it. Super influential dude, really smart dude.
Well, that's unfortunate, man.
Yeah, I mean, he led a good life. He did a lot for the internet and everyone as a whole.
Well, so that's the crazy thing is we think of the internet being still young, like took off in the 90s, but the internet actually is so much older. Like you said, ARPANET, that has its ties in the 60s.
Yes.
While it is nowhere near, like, they're completely different. Like if you were to compare the internet to ARPANET, like,
correct. Yeah. Not the same thing, but same but different.
Yeah. So it is concept. Interesting thinking about how all these influential people, they're getting up in age. A lot of people who develop a lot of cool things are unfortunately going to pass away.
That is true. We can only hope that the current generation is up to the task of filling those shoes, because the people that were around, like the OGs that were around, like this guy during ARPANET and stuff like that, and have seen it all. They were huge innovators in doing stuff, and they were very much for making stuff open source and making stuff free to use and just connecting people and making the internet better, and not so much trying to monetize off of it or add another freaking AI co-pilot to your newest device. Like, to me, that's not really innovation. That's just capitalizing and trying to make money off of a new product. Whereas a lot of these people literally built stuff from the ground up and shared it with people, for free, because they just wanted it to be a better place.
Yeah, and so I hope, and we kind of talked about the subject with the Firefox and everything, but the internet, what makes it so great is that it is so open. And I think, we just got to be very careful that if we do let it get in the hands of big corporations, that it'll become more closed and would actually harm the internet instead of making it better.
I fully agree. Yeah, this comes back to my original point of, if YouTube died tomorrow, I do not care.
Hey, whoa. Hey, we care, okay? Susan.
No.
Wait, it's not Susan anymore.
No, it's, who took over?
Yeah, let me see if I can look it up real quick.
Yeah, it's not Mama Sue anymore. Who's the new pimp?
Neil Mohan. Oh, I mentioned him earlier.
Neil Mohan.
Yes, Neil. Hey, Neil, don't demonetize us. Not that we're monetized anymore.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I was like, even though we've made zero money off of YouTube. But yeah, on that note though, we will eventually be making a video on alternatives to certain sites, I guess. Maybe the one that you're currently listening to this or watching this on. Yeah, there are alternatives out there, so that are much more user centric and much more open centric, rather than just trying to make a quick buck or a long term buck, like YouTube with their ads. So yeah, there are greener pastures out there, and as I said, I just think a lot of people don't know that it's there. So we do plan on making a video kind of explaining what your options are, because options are good when it comes to the internet. But on that note, I do not have anything else to share. So thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.